June 6, 1944, Omaha Beach, Normandy, France. American soldiers are pinned down by unstoppable German tanks rolling across the sand. Machine gun fire rips through the air. Men are dying by the hundreds. Then one soldier picks up a simple tube-shaped weapon that looks almost like a telescope. The Germans had never seen anything like it before. What happens next shocks the entire Wehrmacht. This wasn't just another American gun. This was something that would change warfare forever. In just minutes, their most feared Panzer tanks are burning wrecks. German commanders are frantically radioing headquarters, demanding to know what this mystery weapon is. But here's what they didn't know. Back in Detroit, American factories were pumping out these weapons faster than Germany could build tanks. The numbers were absolutely staggering and impossible. How did a simple tube with a rocket completely destroy Germany's tank advantage? What was this secret weapon that left German generals speechless? And how did American factories achieve the impossible? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The thunderous roar of artillery shells exploding against the French coastline shattered the pre-dawn silence of June 6, 1944, salt spray mixed with acrid smoke as landing craft approached Omaha Beach. Their steel hulls cutting through choppy waters turned white with foam. Private George Peterson gripped his rifle with one hand and steadied the unfamiliar metal tube strapped to his back with the other. Beside him, Corporal Thomas Williams checked his ammunition for the third time in 5 minutes. The smell of diesel fuel and sweat filled the cramped landing craft as 36 men prepared to storm the most heavily defended beach in Nazi-occupied Europe. "What's that thing you're carrying, Peterson?" Williams shouted over the engine noise. "They call it a bazooka," Peterson replied, adjusting the 2.5-foot tube. "Supposed to stop tanks dead," Williams laughed grimly. "With that little thing? Germans got Panzer IVs waiting for us up there." As their landing craft ground against the sand, machine gun fire erupted from the bluffs above. The first waves of soldiers poured onto the beach, many falling within steps of the waterline. Peterson splashed through knee-deep water, the bazooka's 15-pound weight feeling heavier with each stride. German MG-42 machine guns swept the beach with devastating precision, their distinctive ripping sound earning them the nickname Hitler's buzzsaw. From concealed positions, Panzer IV tanks began rolling toward the shoreline, their 75-millimeter guns traversing to target the landing craft. Peterson dove behind a metal obstacle as a Panzer shell exploded 20 yards away, showering him with sand and debris. Through the smoke, he watched the German tank advance, its commander visible in the open hatch, directing fire at the vulnerable Americans. This was the moment Peterson had trained for. He assembled the bazooka with practiced efficiency, sliding a 2.36-inch rocket into the rear of the tube. The weapon's electrical firing system hummed to life as he flipped the safety switch. The Panzer Wehrmacht continued its advance, now less than 100 yards away. Its thick frontal armor, 50 millimeters of hardened steel, had proven impervious to rifle fire and hand grenades. German tank crews had grown confident in their mechanical superiority. Peterson steadied the bazooka on his shoulder, peering through the simple optical sight. The rocket-propelled grenade contained a shaped charge designed to penetrate steel through explosive force rather than kinetic energy. American engineers had spent months perfecting the warhead's copper liner, which would form a molten jet capable of boring through armor. He squeezed the trigger. The rocket streaked across the beach with a distinctive whoosh, leaving a trail of white smoke. It struck the Panzer's front glacis plate and detonated with a brilliant flash. The shaped charge burned through the armor in milliseconds, sending superheated metal fragments ricocheting inside the tank's fighting compartment. The German tank lurched to a halt, black smoke pouring from its hatches. The assembly line at the Chrysler Tank Arsenal in Detroit stretched for nearly half a mile, a river of steel and motion that never stopped flowing. Olivia Carter wiped her forehead with a grease-stained cloth as she tightened another bolt on a Sherman tank's turret ring. The smell of hot metal and machine oil filled the cavernous factory floor where the rhythmic pounding of pneumatic hammers created an industrial symphony. It was November 1943, and American industry had transformed itself into the world's most powerful war machine. Where luxury automobiles once rolled off production lines, now tanks, aircraft engines, and ammunition emerged at breathtaking speed. "Another turret ready for assembly," Olivia called to her supervisor, stepping back as a crane lifted the massive steel casting toward the waiting hull. Around her, hundreds of workers performed similar tasks with mechanical precision, each person a crucial link in an unprecedented manufacturing chain. The numbers told an impossible story. The Chrysler arsenal alone produced nearly 40 Sherman tanks every day, working 3 shifts around the clock. Across Detroit, General Motors converted its automobile plants to manufacture aircraft engines, producing more than 1,000 Pratt & Whitney radial engines each week. Mary Thompson, working at the station beside Olivia, paused to check the production schedule posted on a nearby bulletin board. "Says here we're supposed to hit 50 tanks a day by Christmas," she said, shaking her head in amazement. The transformation extended far beyond individual factories. Ford's Willow Run plant, originally designed for civilian automobile assembly, now produced one B-24 Liberator bomber every hour during peak shifts. The facility's mile-long assembly line could complete an aircraft from initial framework to final inspection in just 18 hours. In another section of the Chrysler facility, workers assembled the Bazooka's component parts with equal efficiency. The weapon's simple design allowed for rapid mass production using existing metalworking equipment. Steel tubing, electrical components, and optical sights flowed through the factory at rates that would have seemed impossible just 2 years earlier. American steel production reached record levels throughout 1943, with mills operating at 105% of their rated capacity. The nation produced 89 million tons of steel that year, compared to Germany's 34 million tons. This raw material advantage translated directly into battlefield superiority. The human cost of this industrial mobilization was equally staggering. Detroit's population swelled by nearly 200,000 workers, many of them women and African Americans entering the industrial workforce for the first time. Housing shortages forced families to share apartments and work different shifts to maximize living space. Olivia's shift ended at midnight, but the factory never slept. As she walked toward the exit, the next crew was already taking positions at their stations. Through the windows, she could see similar scenes playing out across the city as Detroit's war machine ground forward with relentless determination. Outside, a convoy of military trucks waited to transport the completed tanks to East Coast ports for shipment to Europe. General Heinz Guderian stood before a detailed map of the Normandy coastline, his fingers tracing the defensive positions that had taken months to construct. The concrete bunkers, steel obstacles, and carefully sighted anti-tank guns represented the Wehrmacht's most sophisticated coastal defense system. Yet the reports arriving from the front lines told an increasingly disturbing story. Herr General, another Panzer company reports catastrophic losses near Omaha Beach, reported Major Klaus Weber, holding a decoded radio message. They describe a new American anti-tank weapon of unknown capability. Guderian's weathered face remained impassive as he studied the tactical situation. As the architect of German armored doctrine, he understood better than anyone how tank superiority had driven their early victories. The Panzer divisions had rolled across Poland, France, and deep into the Soviet Union, their mechanical advantage proving decisive in battle after battle. The Panzer IV represented the backbone of German armored forces, with over 8,000 produced since the war began. Its 50-millimeter gun could penetrate most Allied tanks at combat ranges, while its 50-millimeter frontal armor provided protection against conventional anti-tank weapons. German tank crews had grown confident in their tactical superiority, but the American reports described something entirely different. Infantry soldiers previously helpless against armored vehicles were now destroying Panzer tanks with handheld weapons. The implications sent a chill through the German High Command. "What details do we have about this weapon?" Guderian asked, turning from the map. Weber consulted his notes. Initial reports describe a tube-launched projectile fired from the shoulder. Range appears to be approximately 100 meters, with sufficient penetrating power to defeat our standard armor. Guderian nodded grimly. German intelligence had failed to identify this threat during the months of preparation for the Allied invasion. Their agents in Britain and the United States had focused on major weapon systems like tanks and aircraft, overlooking what appeared to be a relatively simple infantry weapon. The production statistics arriving from German factories painted an equally troubling picture. Tank production had peaked at 350 units per month in early 1944, but Allied bombing raids were systematically destroying key manufacturing facilities. The Henschel plant in Kassel, responsible for Tiger tank production, operated at only 60% capacity after repeated air attacks. Meanwhile, intercepted American radio traffic suggested industrial production levels that seemed impossible to believe. Intelligence estimates indicated the United States was manufacturing more than 1,500 tanks per month, along with thousands of aircraft and millions of rounds of ammunition. Major Weber placed another message on Guderian's desk. "Sir, Army Group B reports that American forces are advancing inland from the beachhead. Our defensive positions are being systematically eliminated by this new weapon." Guderian studied the report in silence. The Wehrmacht's tactical doctrine had assumed German tanks would dominate any battlefield, supported by extensive fortifications and prepared defensive positions. The American Bazooka threatened to upset these calculations entirely. Private George Peterson crouched behind a Norman hedgerow, the Bazooka's familiar weight steady on his shoulder as he peered through the morning mist. 2 weeks had passed since D-Day, and the American forces were slowly expanding their foothold in occupied France. The distinctive clatter of tank tracks announced the approach of another German armored patrol. "Panzer III, maybe 400 yards," whispered Corporal Thomas Williams, adjusting his binoculars. "Moving along the road toward that farm," Peterson nodded, checking the rocket loaded in his bazooka's breech. The shaped charge warhead contained precisely 2 pounds of Composition B explosive designed to burn through steel armor at temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. American engineers had perfected the copper liner's design through extensive testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground. The German tank emerged from behind a stone barn, its commander scanning the countryside through open hatches. This Panzer III mounted a 50mm gun and carried maximum armor thickness of 57 millimeters, making it vulnerable to the bazooka's penetrating capability. Training had taught Peterson to aim for the tank's side armor, where steel thickness dropped to 30 millimeters. He waited until the Panzer presented its flank, then squeezed the firing trigger. The rocket motor ignited with a sharp crack, propelling the warhead downrange at 850 feet per second. The shaped charge struck the tank's side plate and detonated instantly. Superheated metal fragments penetrated the armor, igniting ammunition stored inside the fighting compartment. The Panzer III erupted in a secondary explosion that shattered windows in nearby farmhouses. "Direct hit," Williams shouted, clapping Peterson on the shoulder. "That's your 4th kill this week. American." Production of the bazooka had reached impressive levels by June 1944. Factories across the United States manufactured more than 8,000 units each month, with unit costs dropping to $18 per weapon. The simple design required no specialized tooling, allowing conversion of existing manufacturing facilities. The tactical impact proved equally significant. Before the bazooka's introduction, American infantry possessed no effective means of engaging German armor at close range. Soldiers equipped with rifles and hand grenades could only retreat when faced with tank attacks. Now they possessed a weapon capable of destroying the Wehrmacht's most formidable vehicles. Training programs had prepared thousands of American soldiers in bazooka employment. The weapon's simple operation required minimal instruction, while its electrical firing system proved reliable under combat conditions. Most importantly, the bazooka's 75-yard maximum effective range allowed infantry teams to engage tanks from concealed positions. Peterson reloaded his weapon as another German tank appeared in the distance. The Wehrmacht's tactical advantage was evaporating with each successful engagement, replaced by growing American confidence in their new anti-tank capability. Through the afternoon, his squad destroyed 3 more German armored vehicles, including a Stug 3 assault gun that had terrorized French resistance fighters for months. The situation, room beneath German Army headquarters in Paris, buzzed with urgent activity as staff officers compiled damage reports from Normandy. General Heinz Guderian studied the mounting casualties with growing alarm, his decades of armored warfare experience unable to explain the catastrophic tank losses occurring along the front lines. 7th, Panzer Army reports the loss of 63 tanks in the past week, announced Major Klaus Weber, placing another decoded message on the general's desk. Most destroyed by this American handheld weapon. Guderian's jaw tightened as he reviewed the tactical summaries. German tank crews, previously confident in their mechanical superiority, now approached infantry positions with extreme caution. The psychological impact proved as devastating as the physical destruction. The Wehrmacht had built its tactical doctrine around armored spearheads supported by mechanized infantry. Panzer divisions had achieved spectacular victories in Poland, France, and the early stages of Operation Barbarossa through aggressive tank attacks that overwhelmed enemy defenses. Now that fundamental advantage was disappearing, what countermeasures are available? Guderian asked, turning to his intelligence officer. Limited options, Herr General. Our factories cannot increase tank production significantly due to material shortages and Allied bombing. Steel allocation for July has been reduced by 30% following the raids on the Ruhr industrial complex. The production statistics painted a grim picture. German tank manufacturing peaked at 425 units in December 1943, but had fallen to fewer than 300 per month by June 1944. Meanwhile, American intelligence intercepts suggested the United States was producing more than 2,000 armored vehicles monthly. Raw material shortages compounded the problem. Germany's iron ore imports from Sweden faced constant disruption from Allied naval operations, while synthetic fuel production struggled to meet Wehrmacht requirements. Tank crews often received reduced fuel allocations, limiting their operational mobility. Major Weber presented another troubling report. Sir, interrogation of captured American soldiers reveals extensive training in anti-tank tactics. This weapon appears to be standard equipment throughout their infantry units. Guderian studied a technical drawing recovered from a destroyed American position. The bazooka's simple design contrasted sharply with German engineering philosophy, which favored complex, high-performance weapon systems. Yet this crude-appearing device was systematically destroying his most sophisticated tanks. The strategic implications were becoming clear. Germany's initial advantages in tank design and tactical doctrine were being neutralized by American industrial capacity and technological innovation. The Wehrmacht could not replace its losses at anything approaching the rate of American production. Prepare new defensive instructions for all armored units, Guderian ordered. Tanks are to avoid close engagement with American infantry whenever possible. We must preserve our remaining armor for decisive battles. The admission of tactical inferiority marked a fundamental shift in German strategy. For the first time since the war began, Wehrmacht commanders acknowledged their inability to achieve battlefield superiority through superior equipment and training. General Dwight David Eisenhower stood before a massive wall map in his headquarters at Southwick House, studying the latest intelligence reports from Normandy with evident satisfaction. Red pins marked German tank losses throughout the beachhead area, while blue arrows indicated steady Allied advances inland from the invasion beaches. The bazookas proving more effective than our most optimistic projections, reported Colonel James Thompson, Eisenhower's ordnance specialist. Infantry units are engaging German armor with unprecedented success rates. Eisenhower nodded approvingly as he reviewed the tactical summaries. American soldiers were adapting quickly to their new anti-tank capability, developing innovative tactics that maximize the weapon's effectiveness. Small teams positioned themselves in concealed locations, allowing German tanks to approach within optimal engagement range before opening fire. The strategic implications extended far beyond individual battlefield successes. For the first time in the war, American infantry possessed firepower sufficient to challenge German mechanized formations without requiring tank or artillery support. This tactical flexibility allowed more aggressive operations against previously impregnable defensive positions. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What's our current production status? Eisenhower asked, turning to review supply reports. Exceeding all targets, General. American factories delivered 12,000 bazookas to European theater forces in June alone. Monthly production capacity now exceeds 15,000 units. The production statistics reflected America's unprecedented industrial mobilization. Factories across the United States had converted from civilian manufacturing to military production with remarkable speed and efficiency. The bazooka's simple design facilitated rapid mass production using existing metalworking equipment and techniques. Quality control maintained high standards despite the accelerated production schedule. Each weapon underwent rigorous testing before shipment, ensuring reliability under combat conditions. The electrical firing system proved particularly robust, functioning effectively in the wet, muddy conditions prevalent throughout Normandy. Training programs had prepared thousands of American soldiers in proper bazooka employment. Infantry schools conducted intensive courses covering target identification, range estimation, and tactical deployment. Most importantly, soldiers learned to coordinate bazooka teams with supporting forces to maximize battlefield effectiveness. Eisenhower studied photographs of destroyed German tanks, their twisted hulls testament to the shaped charge's devastating power. Intelligence estimates suggested the Wehrmacht had lost nearly 400 armored vehicles in Normandy, with bazookas accounting for approximately 40% of the total. The Germans are adjusting their tactics in response, Colonel Thompson noted. Tank crews are maintaining greater distances from our infantry positions and requesting artillery support before advancing. Excellent, Eisenhower replied. Forcing them to abandon aggressive tank tactics reduces their operational flexibility. We're dictating the terms of engagement now. The Supreme Allied Commander understood that battlefield innovation represented only one aspect of American advantage. Behind the tactical successes lay an industrial system capable of producing weapons faster than the enemy could destroy them. German tank crews might knock out individual bazookas, but American factories would replace them within days. The tide of war was turning decisively in America's favor. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rubble-strewn streets of St. Lo as American forces prepared for their final assault on the German defensive positions. Private George Peterson crouched beside a destroyed stone wall, his bazooka loaded and ready, as Corporal Thomas Williams surveyed the enemy strongpoint through binoculars. 2 Stu-G assault guns, covering the main approach, Williams whispered. Infantry positions in the buildings beyond. They've got interlocking fields of fire. Peterson nodded, studying the tactical situation. The German defenders had positioned their armored vehicles to command all routes into the town center, while machine gun nests provided supporting fire from upper-story windows. Previous frontal attacks had failed with heavy casualties. The bazooka offered a solution that would have been impossible just months earlier. American infantry could now engage German armor directly, eliminating the need for costly tank-versus-tank battles that favored the defenders' prepared positions. "I'll take the Stu-G on the left," Peterson said, checking his weapon's electrical system. "Johnson's team can handle the other one from that side street." The assault began at precisely 0800 hours with coordinated artillery fire that shattered windows and filled the air with dust and debris. Under cover of the barrage, American infantry teams advanced to within effective bazooka range of their targets. Peterson's shaped charge struck the Stu-G-3's frontal armor and penetrated with devastating effect. The assault gun's ammunition exploded in a brilliant fireball that collapsed part of the adjacent building. Simultaneously, the second German vehicle erupted under fire from Staff Sergeant Robert Johnson's bazooka team. With their armored support eliminated, German infantry began withdrawing from their forward positions. American forces advanced through the streets, systematically clearing buildings and eliminating pockets of resistance. The town fell within 4 hours. Marie Dubois emerged from her cellar hiding place as the sound of gunfire faded. For 4 years, she had endured German occupation, watching foreign soldiers patrol her hometown streets. Now American troops were distributing chocolate and cigarettes to grateful civilians. "Merci beaucoup," she said to Peterson, who was examining his expended bazooka tube. "Thank you for freeing our town." The tactical significance of St. Lo extended beyond its immediate strategic value. American forces had demonstrated their ability to overcome prepared German defenses through superior firepower and innovative tactics. The bazooka played a crucial role in neutralizing enemy armor without requiring massive tank formations. Intelligence reports indicated the Wehrmacht was abandoning forward defensive positions throughout Normandy, falling back to more defensible lines farther inland. German commanders no longer possessed confidence in their ability to stop American infantry attacks. Colonel Thompson's after-action report documented the destruction of 16 German armored vehicles during the St. Lo operation, with bazookas accounting for 12 confirmed kills. American casualties remained surprisingly light. Despite the urban fighting, steam rose from the night shift at the River Rouge plant as Olivia Carter guided another steel plate through the cutting machine, the rhythmic clang of heavy machinery echoing through the vast factory complex. December 1944 brought record-breaking production levels as American industry reached its wartime peak, transforming raw materials into instruments of victory at breathtaking speed. The statistics defied comprehension. Ford's Willow Run facility completed one B-24 Liberator bomber every hour during peak operations, while General Motors manufactured more than 40,000 aircraft engines monthly. Across Detroit, similar scenes played out as the arsenal of democracy operated at maximum capacity. Another batch of bazooka tubes ready for assembly, called Mary Thompson from her station, wiping her grease-stained hands on her coveralls. Around her, dozens of workers performed specialized tasks with mechanical precision, each person contributing to a production miracle that German planners had deemed impossible. The bazooka program exemplified American manufacturing efficiency. Simple design requirements allowed rapid tooling and minimal worker training, while standardized components facilitated mass production using existing metalworking equipment. Monthly output had reached 20,000 units by late 1944. Quality control maintained rigorous standards despite the accelerated production schedule. Each weapon underwent functional testing before shipment, ensuring reliability under combat conditions. The electrical firing system proved particularly robust, operating effectively in extreme weather and battlefield environments. Raw material flows sustained the unprecedented production levels through careful logistical planning. Steel mills across the Great Lakes region provided armor plate and structural components, while copper mines in Montana supplied electrical wiring and shaped charge liners. Railroad networks coordinated the movement of millions of tons of materials monthly. The human dimension of industrial mobilization proved equally impressive. Women comprised nearly 40% of the manufacturing workforce by 1944. Many working in skilled positions previously reserved for men. African Americans migrated from the rural South to fill critical factory jobs, fundamentally reshaping American society. Olivia's shift supervisor, James Mitchell, announced the latest production figures over the factory's public address system. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just completed our 5,000th bazooka this month, ahead of schedule and under budget. Every weapon you build saves American lives overseas." The connection between factory floor and battlefield remained constantly visible through letters from servicemen, newspaper reports, and government communications. Workers understood that their efforts directly supported soldiers fighting in Europe and the Pacific, providing motivation that sustained grueling 12-hour shifts. Outside the factory windows, convoys of military trucks waited to transport completed weapons to East Coast ports for shipment overseas. The sight of olive-drab vehicles filled with American-made equipment had become commonplace throughout Detroit, tangible evidence of the nation's industrial might. Production schedules called for continued increases through 1945 as American forces prepared for final operations against Germany and Japan snow-crunched beneath German jackboots as Sergeant Hans Müller led his depleted tank crew through the frozen Ardennes forest, their abandoned Panzer force smoking in the distance behind them. The Battle of the Bulge represented Germany's final, desperate offensive. But American industrial superiority was overwhelming Wehrmacht forces with crushing inevitability. "Verdammte Americans and their rocket weapons," muttered Müller, glancing back at the destroyed tank. 3 weeks into the offensive, German armored formations had lost nearly 200 vehicles to bazooka attacks. While replacement tanks remained virtually non-existent, the tactical situation reflected broader strategic realities. Germany's industrial capacity had fallen to critical levels under sustained Allied bombing, while fuel shortages limited operational mobility even for surviving tanks. Wehrmacht units operated with ammunition allocations reduced to 20% of normal levels. American forces responded to the German offensive with overwhelming material superiority. Within 48 hours of the initial attack, thousands of bazookas were distributed to frontline infantry units, providing immediate anti-tank capability. Supply columns delivered fresh ammunition and replacement weapons faster than German forces could destroy them. Technical Sergeant Robert E. Johnson positioned his bazooka team behind a snow-covered log as another German tank approached through the forest. The Panzer Force commander scanned nervously for American positions, aware that enemy infantry now possessed weapons capable of destroying his vehicle. "Range 200 yards and closing," Johnson whispered to his loader. The tank's side armor would present an optimal target once it passed their concealed position. The rocket struck the Panzer's fuel tank, igniting diesel vapors in a spectacular explosion that illuminated the surrounding trees. German crew members stumbled from the burning wreckage, their confidence in mechanical superiority permanently shattered. Production statistics revealed the impossibility of German success. American factories had delivered more than 80,000 bazookas to European forces by December 1944, while German tank production struggled to exceed 300 units monthly. The Wehrmacht faced enemies equipped with weapons they could not match and could not replace. Weather conditions favored defensive operations, but American logistics proved superior even in winter conditions. Supply trucks delivered ammunition and equipment through snowstorms that paralyzed German movement, while air support provided close air support when visibility permitted. General Heinz Guderian received the final damage reports in his headquarters near Koblenz, the numbers confirming his worst fears about the offensive's outcome. "We've lost nearly 60% of our available armor," Major Klaus Weber reported. "American anti-tank weapons are destroying tanks faster than we can commit them to battle." The Battle of the Bulge marked the Wehrmacht's last major offensive operation in Western Europe. German forces would spend the remaining months of the war in continuous retreat, their tactical capabilities degraded beyond recovery. American industrial might had proven decisive once again. Smoke from burning buildings filled the Berlin sky as Soviet artillery pounded the Reich Chancellery, while American forces pressed their advance from the western suburbs. General Dwight David Eisenhower reviewed the final operational reports in his forward headquarters, studying casualty figures that told the story of industrial warfare's decisive victory over military tradition. "German resistance is collapsing on all fronts," reported Colonel James Thompson, marking destroyed enemy positions on the situation map. "Their remaining armor can't maintain defensive lines against our combined arms attacks." The numbers reflected total American industrial dominance. By April 1945, Allied forces had destroyed more than 15,000 German tanks and assault guns, while American factories had produced nearly 120,000 armored vehicles. The Wehrmacht's mechanical advantage had been overwhelmed by sheer productive capacity. Bazooka effectiveness remained consistently high throughout the final campaigns. Infantry teams destroyed an average of 3 German armored vehicles per day during the advance into central Germany, while ammunition supply never fell below operational requirements. American logistics sustained combat operations across a front stretching from the Baltic Sea to Austria. Technical innovations continued improving battlefield performance. The M9A1 Bazooka incorporated lessons learned from 2 years of combat experience, featuring improved electrical systems and more reliable shaped charge warheads. Monthly production exceeded 25,000 units by early 1945. Staff Sergeant Robert Johnson's squad advanced through the rubble-strewn streets of a German industrial city, their bazookas ready for any remaining enemy armor. The tactical situation had reversed completely since D-Day, with German forces now desperately defending urban areas against overwhelming American firepower. Panzer Faust team in that building, Johnson called to his men, identifying a German anti-tank position. The Wehrmacht had developed their own infantry anti-tank weapons, but production limitations restricted availability to specialized units. The shaped charge struck the building's corner, collapsing masonry and eliminating the threat. American forces advanced methodically through each city block, their superior equipment and ammunition supply ensuring tactical success against any resistance level. Industrial production statistics revealed the true scope of American achievement. During 44 months of active combat, United States factories had manufactured more military equipment than all Axis powers combined. The arsenal of democracy had fulfilled President Roosevelt's most ambitious production goals while maintaining civilian living standards. Behind the advancing armies, military government teams prepared to administer occupied territory using administrative skills developed through years of large-scale organizational experience. American victory represented not just military success, but demonstration of democratic industrial capacity superiority over totalitarian systems. The Third Reich's surrender was now a matter of days rather than weeks. German commanders recognized the futility of continued resistance against enemies possessing unlimited ammunition, fuel, and replacement equipment. Victory belonged to the nation that could manufacture it. The ornate conference room in Reims fell silent as German officers signed the unconditional surrender documents, formally ending the European War on May 7, 1945. General Dwight David Eisenhower watched from an adjacent room as representatives of the Wehrmacht acknowledged complete defeat, their signatures marking the triumph of American industrial might over Axis military tradition. "It's finished," Eisenhower said quietly to his staff, studying the final casualty reports that documented the war's staggering human and material costs. German forces had lost more than 25,000 tanks and assault guns during the conflict, while American production exceeded 130,000 armored vehicles. The bazooka's contribution to Allied victory could be measured in precise statistics. Infantry teams had destroyed more than 8,000 German armored vehicles using the simple tube-launched weapon, accounting for nearly 30% of total enemy tank losses. American factories had manufactured over 150,000 bazookas at a total cost of $3 million. Technical Sergeant Robert Johnson stood with his squad in the ruins of Berlin, their weapons silent for the first time in 11 months of continuous combat. The shaped charge warheads that had terrorized German tank crews now served as reminders of American technological innovation and industrial capacity. "Hard to believe it's over," said Private George Peterson, examining his well-worn bazooka. The weapon had served him faithfully from Normandy to the Reich Chancellery, destroying dozens of enemy vehicles and saving countless American lives. Production statistics told the broader story of democratic industrial mobilization. During the war's peak years, American factories operated at 120% of rated capacity, employing more than 18 million workers in direct military production. This unprecedented effort had generated sufficient weapons and equipment to supply not only United States forces, but British, Soviet, and free French armies as well. Olivia Carter received news of Germany's surrender while working the night shift at the Chrysler Arsenal. Her contribution to victory measured in thousands of tank turrets and weapon components manufactured over 3 years of dedicated service. Around her, fellow workers celebrated the end of European combat while maintaining production schedules for continued operations against Japan. The human cost of victory remained soberly evident in casualty reports and memorial services honoring those who had paid the ultimate price for freedom. Yet their sacrifice had achieved decisive results, demonstrating that democratic societies possessed both the moral resolve and industrial capacity necessary to defeat totalitarian aggression. Strategic analyses would later confirm that material superiority had proven decisive in achieving Allied victory. German military excellence could not compensate for fundamental disadvantages in raw material access, manufacturing capacity, and technological innovation. The arsenal of democracy had fulfilled its promise. Completely, sunlight streamed through the windows of the now quiet Chrysler Arsenal. As Olivia Carter walked the empty assembly line one final time, her footsteps echoing through a facility that had thundered with wartime production for nearly 4 years. The transformation to peacetime manufacturing was already underway, with civilian automobile production scheduled to resume by year's end. "A lot of memories in this place," said Mary Thompson, joining her longtime co-worker for the ceremonial shutdown of military production. Around them, machinery that had produced thousands of tanks and weapons stood silent, awaiting reconfiguration for peacetime purposes. The economic impact of wartime mobilization extended far beyond military victory. American industrial capacity had expanded by nearly 60% during the conflict, creating manufacturing infrastructure that would drive post-war prosperity for decades. The techniques and technologies developed for military production found immediate application in civilian markets. Defense contractors transitioned smoothly to consumer goods manufacturing, applying mass production methods perfected during the war to automobiles, appliances, and electronics. The workforce skills developed in tank factories transferred readily to civilian assembly lines, ensuring continued employment for millions of war workers. Gross domestic product statistics reflected the transformation's scope. American economic output had grown from $91 billion in 1939 to over $200 billion by 1945, establishing the United States as the world's dominant economic power. This prosperity would finance the reconstruction of war-torn Europe and Asia. Technological innovations developed for military purposes sparked civilian advances in electronics, metallurgy, and precision manufacturing. The radar systems that guided Allied bombers evolved into commercial aviation navigation equipment, while jet engine technology revolutionized passenger air travel. General Dwight David Eisenhower returned to the United States as a conquering hero, his reputation built upon successful integration of American industrial capacity with military strategy. The lessons learned in coordinating massive logistical operations would serve him well in his subsequent role as President of the United States. The bazooka itself became obsolete within a decade, replaced by more sophisticated anti-tank weapon systems. Yet its historical significance remained undeniable as a symbol of American innovation and industrial capability. Museums across the nation would display the simple tube launcher as a reminder of how democratic determination had overcome totalitarian aggression. Veterans like Technical Sergeant Robert Johnson and Private George Peterson returned to civilian life carrying skills and confidence gained through service in the world's most technologically advanced military force. Their experiences would shape American society throughout the post-war era. The arsenal of democracy had not only won the war, but had fundamentally transformed American society and established the foundations for unprecedented prosperity. The industrial miracle that had begun in factories like the Chrysler Arsenal would continue driving American preeminence into the 21st century. Victory had indeed been manufactured. If you enjoyed the story, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.